Welcome back, America. If you have seen a clip of yesterday's interview of Ted Cruz on The View about his brand new book, Justice Corrupted, then you will know that Justice Corrupted got help by that book a lot, even though every host on The View was hostile to Senator Cruz. He joins me now. Good morning, Senator. Welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hugh, good morning. Great to be with you.
You know, you flunked the Luntz law yesterday. The rule of Luntz is you've got to say the title of the book 7 times in any media segment. So you got to say Justice Corrupted. But I don't think they let you talk. I mean, what was that
No,
all about?
look, it was certainly going into the lion's den, but I think there's also value. I think as conservatives, we spend too much time preaching to the choir. I think the choir needs love, but I think we need to spend a lot more time talking to young people, talking to Hispanics, talking to African Americans, talking to suburban moms, all of whom are paying the price for the disastrous path we're on. And so I went on The View, not to convince the hosts. I don't think they're convincible, but to try to convince the folks who are watching and to have them understand a different perspective, which this book, Justice Corrupted, that's 2 of my 7. I got 5 to go.
Yep.
Is all about how Barack Obama and subsequently Joe Biden have turned the Department of Justice and the FBI and the IRS and the federal government into political weapons to attack their enemies. And that's dangerous for anyone who cares about the rule of law, anyone who cares about individual liberty. Having the machinery of government turned into a political weapon results in a really dangerous outcome. And I hope at least some of the folks watching the show heard that maybe for the first time yesterday.
Well, Senator, I want to spend some time on this because I'm a veteran of the
Yeah.
DOJ, and my job was Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrants that Bill Smith personally
Yeah.
reviewed. It was before the National Security Division. You write about Justice Corrupted. I cannot believe these people have TV deals. I cannot believe I see Andrew McCabe and Peter Strzok on TV. I cannot believe I see Jim Comey with books. They corrupted the FISA process, which is the most secretive court in the United States. How big of a deal is that, and has the story ever been told before Justice Corrupted?
Look, it is a massive deal, and it's, as you noted, you and I are both alums of the Department of Justice, and the degree to which the integrity of that institution has been breached by these partisans is very concerning. With the book talks about how under Barack Obama they put hard partisans into the Department of Justice and the FBI, and they began using that machinery to target their enemies. Now, at the end of the Obama administration, Donald Trump came in, and what they did is they burrowed their rabid partisans into the senior career positions at the DOJ and the FBI and the IRS and agencies across the alphabet soup. And so in Crossfire Hurricane, the book details, for example, on January 5th, right before Donald Trump was sworn in as president, there was an Oval Office meeting with Barack Obama and Joe Biden and the head of DOJ and the head of the CIA and the head of the FBI, where they made the decision, let's target this new president, let's surveil this new president, let's go after this new president. It was a corrupt decision, and the Inspector General of the Department of Justice has examined this persecution. It wasn't even a prosecution, and concluded over and over again they committed rampant partisan abuses, the most grotesque of which is an assistant general counsel at the FBI was seeking a wiretap on Carter Page, who was a professor, who was a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. They were going after Donald Trump. And the basis of this wiretap and the warrant they were seeking from the FISA court was they basically said, look, this guy Carter Page is talking to a lot of shady Russians. That gives us a reason to go after him. Well, the FBI did a little bit of due diligence. They sent an email to the CIA, and they asked a question: is this guy Carter Page, is he a source for the CIA? In other words, when he's talking to the shady Russians, is he doing it on behalf of the United States of America to help us out? The CIA emailed back, and they said, yes, he is a source. And what happened next is that this guy, Kevin Klein-Smith, who was an assistant general counsel, took that email. He fraudulently altered it. It said, yes, he was a source for the CIA. He altered the email so that it said, no, he was not a source for the CIA. So it literally reversed what the email said. And he then submitted that fraudulent document to the federal court, the FISA court, used it as a basis to get the wiretap and go after the Trump campaign. This guy ultimately was prosecuted, and at the end of the day, you know how many days in jail he served? Zero. Not a single day. You got a slap on the wrist, and it's an example of just how profoundly Barack Obama and now Joe Biden have turned law enforcement into their political enforcement weapon.
That story is told in Justice Corrupted, and we're going to continue to talk about the January 6th committee, and it's going to be on the podcast. I'll play it tomorrow morning as well. But, Senator, I can't keep helping you out here and saying the name of the book when you don't do it. I mean, I've already reminded you. You got to say the book, Justice Corrupted. You just haven't been on the book tour in a long time, have you?
Well, Justice Corrupted, it's available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble. It's available on Books A Million, anywhere you get your book. And Justice Corrupted, it's already shot up to the top of the bestseller list. And look, what Justice Corrupted tries to do is bring you behind the scenes and understand what's going on. Justice Corrupted opens with Loudoun County, Virginia, and you'll remember Loudoun County well, where a young girl, a 14-year-old girl, went to school, and horrifically, she was sexually assaulted at school in the bathroom by a boy wearing a skirt, and then the school covered it up. They insisted, because of their political ideology, this has never happened. No boy wearing a skirt has ever committed sexual assault. In fact, they took the predator, they transferred him to another school, where he proceeded to sexually assault another girl. The parents went to the school board. They were understandably upset. You'd be upset, too, if this happened to your daughter. The school board lied to the parents, lied to the public, said this didn't happen, nothing happened. Instead of arresting the guy who committed the crime, they arrested the parents. They threw the dad on the floor. They handcuffed him. And then the National Association of School Boards sent a letter to the Biden administration asking the administration to target parents who go to school boards as domestic terrorists, to use the Patriot Act and go after them. And 6 days later, Merrick Garland, Biden's attorney general, moved like lightning and wrote a formal memo directing the FBI to target moms and dads who speak out at school boards, whether it's about sexual assault or critical race theory or something else. And they are doing that right now. The FBI is right now interviewing and targeting moms and dads. That is an absolute abuse of power.
But, you know, Senator, yesterday the FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you know well, gave a press conference on Chinese espionage in the United States. And as I was finishing off Justice Corrupted last night in my notes, I thought to myself, I cannot believe we have one FBI agent assigned to that when the China lobby, which you write about, and the Chinese intelligence agencies are after us. They're bringing a new China case every day. We cannot have anyone doing this.
Look, it is, the threats facing this country are massive, and the willingness of this administration, they view the machinery of the federal government as just their own personal playthings. We have seen, whether it was FBI agents raiding Mar-a-Lago and raiding Donald Trump's home. It's never happened in the history of our country until this administration. Or whether it is FBI agents storming the homes of pro-life activists, bursting in at the crack of dawn with machine guns and arresting activists in front of their kids, screaming and crying. The willingness to simply say, we can go after anyone we don't like, that is really, really dangerous. And what the book, Justice Corrupted, tries to do is explain precisely how this has happened and how dangerous it is. Look, you and I both, I hear repeatedly from prosecutors at the Department of Justice, from FBI agents who are frustrated out of their minds. Yesterday, I heard from an FBI agent who was purged from the FBI because he spoke up against this. And I don't want a Republican Department of Justice. I don't want a Democrat Department of Justice. I want a DOJ that enforces the law and doesn't give a damn what party you're in. And the damage they're doing, Merrick Garland has done more damage to the integrity of the Department of Justice than any attorney general in this nation's history, and that is incredibly dangerous to the future of the country.
You know, Senator, when you tried on The View yesterday to bring up former Attorney General Eric Holder, they shouted you down.
Yeah.
They also shouted you down when you wanted to talk about what was going on January 6th when the mob, who is being appropriately prosecuted and appropriately sentenced when found guilty, when what was going on in the Senate is exactly what happened in the year of 2000, in the year of 2004, in the year of 2016. You tell that story in Justice Corrupted, and I read it with great detail. I did not know that Jake Tapper all called you the Sedition Caucus. No one has ever called the Democrats on those three previous occasions. It is a forum in which people's concerns about electoral integrity are brought forward. It had nothing to do with the mob. Nothing to do with the mob.
Well, that's exactly right, the rich hypocrisy leaps off the page. The chairman of this kangaroo court that is the January 6th committee, he himself objected to a prior presidential election, to the election of a Republican. Jamie Raskin, the lead impeachment manager for the House Democrats coming after Donald Trump, one of the very first acts he ever did in Congress was to object to the certification of a Republican. There was an amazing exchange where Whoopi Goldberg was attacking me, which was not particularly amazing or surprising. And she was saying, well, look, you Republicans, you're just violent and aggressive. She's focused on January 6th. You're carrying out acts of violence, and we don't do that. And I got to admit, Hugh, I just started laughing. I said, did you miss an entire year of Antifa riots all across the country where our cities were burning? And Whoopi looked at me and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if any Antifa riots across the country.
I got to pick up on.
They gaslight and lie to their viewers is shocking.
It is, but The View, you kind of knew that coming in. But I want to talk about, because you talk about it in Justice Corrupted, the Chisholm prosecution. You did not know when the book went to press and the pub date was coming that Chisholm would be prosecuted as we speak, right? It's going on right now. And it's a complete circus. He's going back to jail forever for the parade killings when he drove the SUV down the parade route. The difference between the coverage of Kyle Rittenhouse and Mr. Chisholm is extraordinary. And it is the combined influence of a corrupt DOJ and a corrupt media that is corrupting justice. Agree or disagree, Senator?
I absolutely agree. And there's an entire chapter in the book Justice Corrupted about the lawlessness of the far left. And it's a combination of the radicals arguing for abolishing the police, for defunding the police, and then George Soros left-wing DAs who keep letting violent criminals go. And the Waukesha Christmas parade murderer had been in and out of jail repeatedly, and there was a left-wing DA who kept letting him go. Just days before that horrific murder, he had assaulted someone else. He had assaulted a woman and tried to run her over, had hit her with the same red SUV that would become the instrument of murder just days later. He was arrested for it. You would think, okay, you try to run someone over with your car, you're going to jail. Nope, they slapped him on the wrist, gave him a minor bail, let him go, and days later he drove into that parade murdering children, murdering little old ladies, the dancing grannies. And it's an example of this is deliberate, and I walked through why they're doing it. These Soros DAs say, you can impact and undermine the justice system from the inside far more powerfully than from the outside. And we're seeing it every day in the news. We're seeing the crime. Look, I'm in the middle right now, Hugh, of a 17-state national bus tour focused on retaking the House, retaking the Senate. It's been fairly striking as we've gone city to city. A couple of weeks ago, we were in Arizona. The day we're in Arizona, a professor at University of Arizona was shot and killed on campus. The next day, we were in Nevada, in Vegas. That day we were in Nevada and Vegas, there was a mass stabbing. Someone was killed on the Las Vegas Strip at 11 in the morning in front of one of the big hotels. And in that instance, the Vegas mass stabbing was an illegal alien who had repeatedly committed crimes and repeatedly been let go by left-wing DAs. This is deliberate. It is dangerous. And the Democrats in Washington are active participants in it. That's what this book, Justice Corrupted, is all about, is explaining what they're doing and how they are using our justice system against us.
Senator Cruz, I want to close. You and I have a lot to argue about Nixon, but we're not going to do that today because COINTELPRO started in 1956. But we'll come back to that another time. I want to talk to you about CRT because you went to Harvard Law School and somehow you avoided getting brainwashed by the Crits who were there. I went to Michigan and the Crits were not there at the time. I think they're probably there now. I'm jumping ahead here to page 207. You talk about CRT, critical race theory, dying. I mean, critical legal theory dying, but critical race theory was resurrected. Would you first tell people what you think the left means when they say racial equity? I have a theory, but I want to hear what Senator Cruz's theory is.
Well, look, the word equity, and they play lots of games with language, but instead of equality, we all support equality. Equality is the right thing, that we should treat everyone fairly and not discriminate based on race. The left has replaced the word equality with equity, and by equity, they mean actively and aggressively engaging in racial discrimination, actively and aggressively discriminating against what they view as the oppressor class. And the left today wants to discriminate against anyone they disfavor. And there's an entire chapter in the book that explains the origins of critical race theory. You may be sitting at home thinking, where did this stuff come from? And the origins, it's a Marxist theory. It's based on the teachings of Karl Marx. Karl Marx viewed the world in an economically deterministic way. He divided the world into the owners of capital and the workers. And the owners of capital, he argued, are inevitably and unalterably oppressing the workers. And the answer is a communist revolution to forcibly redistribute all the wealth. Well, that worldview was carried in initially to the law schools. And I was at Harvard Law School. I was there the same time as Ketanji Brown Jackson. She was a year behind me. We were both on the law review together. And they morphed it into what was called critical legal studies. Critical legal studies framed the entire legal system as a tool of oppression for the owners of capital to go after the workers. And it was nonsense. And I took classes from the Crits.
No, you did?
What the bad guys
oh, my gosh.
I had Duncan Kennedy for a professor who, one of the things the Crits do, as you know, in the book, I like quote some of the passages of the writing. And it's impenetrable prose. I mean, it's complete gobbledygook. But when you're spouting idiocy, one of the ways you hide it is you write it in a way no one can understand it. And
Senator, I want to get, if Donald Trump doesn't run, and we get you and Mike Pompeo and Tom Cotton and Ron DeSantis all in the race, I just want to have a forum to talk about CRT with you four Harvard and Yale lawyers. And there might be other ones. Josh Hawley might run. There are other, because Ron DeSantis did this last night. I'm giving you sort of a preview here of coming attractions, America. If Ted Cruz runs against Ron DeSantis, you're going to get quotes like this from Ron DeSantis last night, and Senator Cruz is going to have to respond to it. Cut number 16 from last night's debate with Charlie Crist.
I'm proud of our history. I don't want to teach kids to hate our country. I don't want to teach kids to hate each other. And the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race.
Now, Senator Cruz, that is a direct quote from the Chief Justice's dissent in Seattle School District. And so I thought to myself, my goodness, I'm going to pay tickets. If I don't get to moderate the debate, I will pay my way in to watch that debate. But I should moderate the legal debate. Is he right?
Absolutely, he's right. It's not complicated. Look, we have a tremendous history of overcoming discrimination in our country. And the left in these debates engages in these silly straw men where they suggest if you don't embrace discrimination, if you're not a Marxist, if you don't hate America, then you're hiding racial discrimination. No, of course, look, slavery is the original sin of our nation. It was horrific, and we fought a bloody civil war to expunge that sin. And what is unique about America is not slavery. Tragically, societies for millennia have had the evil abomination of slavery. What is unique about America is emancipation, that we fought a war, that we wrote into our Constitution protections that no one can be discriminated based on race. And the left embraces this. They are the pro-discrimination party. And one of the things I describe at great length in the book Justice Corrupted is the long and horrific history the Democrat Party has embracing racism. The Ku Klux Klan was founded by the Democrats. Nathan Bedford Forrest, the founder of the Klan, was a delegate to the 1860 National Convention of the Democrat Party. The Jim Crow laws were written by Democrat politicians to keep Democrats in office, to prevent the voters from voting Democrats out of office, and it continues today where Democrats actively embrace discrimination, and critical race theory is one of the tools they do it, that they're teaching our kids this poison. They're teaching our kids to hate each other based on race. I go into, for example, Ibram Kendi is one of the founders of this idiocy, who is a blatant racist. He spreads ridiculous racist ideas. And by the way, here's what the believers of this think. Ibram Kendi writes, capitalism is inherently racist. To hate racism is to hate capitalism. These are Marxists. They are communists. And this is, sadly, who the left is putting in the Department of Justice, who they're putting in the FBI, who they're putting on the federal courts. And you've got to understand what the threat is, because they're also in the schools teaching our kids that America is inherently evil and that we need to actively discriminate. Government must discriminate going forward. I think that is wrong. It's misguided, but we got to understand it. We got to fight it. And Justice Corrupted is designed to give you the tools to understand it and to know what's going on from behind the scenes in a way that is understandable and readable and gives you the essential facts you need to know.
Senator, I want to give you one last question here because, like me, you're out on the road. I went to 5 different cities and said, I get laryngitis. You've done 17 cities. There's nothing, I got a Washington Post column about, nothing like being out with people to know what's going to move this election. Would you give me your scorecard on Senate races? New Hampshire and Georgia and Nevada and Arizona and Ohio and Pennsylvania we're going to hold. But what about Washington State? What about Colorado? What have you seen? What have you heard?
So, look, I think we're going to have a phenomenal election in November. I think Republicans are going to retake both the House and Senate. In the House, I think we're going to have a big majority. I think we could have 30, 40, 50 seats. I think it's going to be on the order of magnitude of 2010. In the Senate, I think we're going to win the majority as well. I think we could be anywhere between 51 seats and 57 seats. If you push me for a number, I'd probably say 53 or 54. If you want to go through our pickup opportunities, I think the number one pickup opportunity in the country is Nevada. I think Adam Laxalt's going to win. I've done a bunch of rallies and campaign events with him. He's a great candidate. I think probably the number 2 pickup opportunity in the country is Georgia.
Yep. Herschel was on today.
Walker, I think is, yeah, and I'm going to be in Georgia with Herschel in a couple of days doing a big rally with him. I think he's going to win that race because Warnock is wildly out of step with the values of the voters of Georgia. I think the next most likely are Arizona and New Hampshire. Both of those, the candidates have been down, but they're both closing. Both Arizona and New Hampshire, Blake Masters and General Bolduc, are within a point or two. And I think we've got a good shot at winning both of those. The next tier in terms of likelihood of winning are Colorado. Joe O'Dea. Look, I think Bennett is vulnerable. I think Colorado is a winnable state. It's got to be a good night to win. And then the next possibility is Washington State. And Washington State, look, historically, that's a tough state for Republicans. But Tiffany Smiley, the candidate there, is a fantastic candidate. She's running a great campaign. And if we're having a really good night, we could win Washington State as well. And we got to hold. We're going to hold Wisconsin. Ron Johnson in Wisconsin is doing a great job. I'm in North Carolina right now, going to do rallies with Ted Budd. He's going to do great. We're going to win North Carolina. I was a couple of days ago in Ohio with J.D. Vance. J.D.'s going to win. Pennsylvania is rockier. Dr. Oz had been down double digits. I think it's now within a couple of points. I think we've got a great shot at winning Pennsylvania. Fetterman is one of these left-wing radicals that I talk about in Justice Corrupted. He's one of these radicals who keep on the parole board repeatedly voted to release violent murderers, violent criminals into the community. And I think his views are so out of touch with the voters of Pennsylvania that I think Dr. Oz has a great chance of winning.
I want to pop in here. I'm going to have Nathan Hochman on tomorrow. He's running for Attorney General in California. I think the Republicans are going to win that because people they can't live in San Francisco and L.A. anymore. 2 people were raped on the Philadelphia mass transit system, 2 teenage girls this weekend. And I think John Fetterman, he might get some sympathy votes, but Dr. Oz is a really fine candidate. Do you agree with me on that?
I do. I wish the campaign actually focused a little less attention on Fetterman's health issues, on the stroke. And it's not because I don't think they're real. But the problem is if you set up your main criticism of your opponent that he's not mentally up to the job, the debate is coming up very shortly. And when the debate happens, all Fetterman has to do is get out 3 coherent sentences, and he's suddenly cured your major criticism. I thought it was a mistake when Trump put so much emphasis on Biden's mental deterioration. It's clearly happened, but we saw that when Biden debated Trump. He got out 3 coherent sentences, and suddenly he was miraculously cured. I think it's better to focus on Fetterman as a radical, as someone who keeps wanting to release and he keeps voting to release violent criminals. And also, here's an amazing thing about Fetterman. All right, so he's a giant man-child who has a trust fund. He's incredibly wealthy. He lived with his parents until he was 40, which is actually a really bad sign if you're not adult enough to get out on your own and actually pay your
Failure
own
to
rent.
launch, failure to launch, failure to launch. Yeah, 4 times.
But not only that, he failed to pay his school taxes for 13 consecutive years. How the hell do you do that? If you and I did that, the men in blue would show up in handcuffs to send us off to the clink. I mean, this is a guy who wants to be a senator who won't even pay the taxes to fund the public schools. It is. I think we're better off focusing on the substantive ideas of the Democrats and how dangerous they are, rather than leaning in so hard on the health issues. The health issues are real, but it's I think a risky strategy.
Justice Corrupted is in bookstores now. Get it at Amazon.com. Senator Cruz, thanks for your time. Keep coming back. We'll talk about Nixon another time, all right?
I look forward to it. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Senator.